Hey everybody, we're here with Heal with Holly. I'm Joe,
And I'm Holly.
and we're talking again in our final video with Dr. Brett Bremhall. And in this video, we're going to be covering the dental fillings.
This is a topic that a lot of people have a lot of questions about. So many people have metal amalgam fillings from when they were a kid. Even as your parents get older, you might be concerned of what that's doing to their brain health, or whether or not they're going to end up with issues, autoimmune issues, cancer. So we're talking to Dr. Bremhall today about when, why, and where to have your metal amalgam fillings removed, and what is it doing to your body? Why is it important to have them removed properly?
Okay, here we go. So, just on the dental thing, this could be a sensitive subject for a lot of people. So I tell people, they'll ask me all the time, should I get them removed? And I don't always say yes to everybody. The reality is it'd be better if there was no mercury in your body ever, right? That's the reality. So like we said at the very beginning, we want to eliminate exposure where we can. So please don't put amalgam in your mouth, right? Or mercury ever again, right? But should everybody have them removed? I really think it's case dependent. And what I mean by that is that if it's affecting your health drastically, yes, you should look at removing them, but remove them in the right way. And so, number one, don't get them. If you have them, right, make sure you're getting dental work done consistently. Because if one of those things crack, if a dental amalgam cracks and it's mercury and it's leaking into your system, and yeah, please go check out some YouTube videos and just type in dental amalgams, right, and toxicity, and just see what shows up. And again, you're going to get both camps, right? Both camps saying they don't bother you, they do. The reality is when dental amalgam pull out of your mouth, they're considered toxic now. So they have to be removed, right? So, but if you have mercury amalgams, have them checked, right? If they start cracking or leaking, they will absolutely give you symptoms most of the time, right? And someone.
So what are those symptoms going to be? How does somebody know if it's
most of the time
actually their amalgam filling that's causing their problem, right?
Well,
or playing into it.
Hopefully you have a consistent dental work done, right? And they're watching that. But if you start having a lot of brain-based symptoms, like a lot of brain-based, like foggy head, that'll be a mild one, to just literally feeling like losing it. It can be severe. And a lot of, sometimes just super sore everywhere. If it triggers an autoimmune response, it might be all joint pain. It might be your thyroid might go crazy, right? Where you get your heart racing, or you're just tired all the time. It can mess with hormones, right? Where you're just feeling moody all the time, or you're getting hot flashes, right? And so just know it can give you such a wide array of symptoms. But if you're gonna remove them, right, ask your dentist about that, right? And that's how I kind of check the dentist to say, well, when somebody has fillings, how do you treat it? If you have a cavity, how do you treat it? Right, so that I can know already if I believe this, if I'm going to work with this person in their philosophy, right? And if they go to remove it, anymore, a lot of them are really good. They'll put a rubber dam around it, right? So they're trying to catch some material and they're doing a lot of suction. But if you have a whole mouthful of amalgams, from my experience and watching people, you only want to remove one quadrant at a time. There are people that literally have a whole mouthful, and my dad had his removed years ago. And this is kind of where we learned some of this stuff. They removed a whole, because he wanted to get it all done. He was so sick when he did that.
So did I. And yes, I had all of mine removed, and it triggered a massive autoimmune situation for me. So yeah, that getting them done a little bit at a time. And then let's talk about mercury. Let's go back to mercury, and where does it go in your body, and what kind of symptoms is this going to cause in people, so they can know to think about. A lot of people don't think about their mouth with their health.
So you'll see, and for some people, if it's a local thing, remember if the mercury leaking locally, you're going to have stuff happen right there. It might be raw, it might be irritated, it might get sores all in it. It may just be that it may have bone loss. Just taking a picture, you might have bone loss right there, just where the actual amalgam is. But many, many times when the amalgam, it cracks a little bit and it gets up into the tooth, it can circulate. It can circulate all over, right? And mercury tends to have a big effect upon brain. That's probably one of your most biggest symptoms. You get brain-based symptoms. They are literally memory, and again, that's why they call it Mad Hatter disease, right? If mercury affects, people would go mad, right? So if your cognition is being drastically changed, then like you want to look at that. So that's why if you can remove the amalgams, I think everybody probably should. Now, is it going to be financially in your budget to do it? If it's not financially in your budget to do it and you know you have them, it's going to be that much more critical, in my opinion, for you to be doing the right thing. So when it leaks, your body is buying it and getting it out of your body. It's going to be that much more important for you to be doing sauna, to be doing foot baths, to be doing the right, activating nerve 2 activating ingredients, the other chelating minerals, right, to bind that and pull it out, right, if you're not going to remove it, right? But when you go to remove them, right, please, 1 quadrant at a time, go to a dentist that like take precautions for you and yourself and himself, right, so that we can actually pull those out consistently and remove them. Super important.
What do you tell people when they're looking for a dentist that to remove them? You mentioned the quadrants at a time, but there's different types of terms for these dentists, right?
Yeah, I mean, you'll hear, holistic dentists, you'll hear bioidentical dentists, like you'll hear, or excuse me, biological dentists, you'll hear those terms. There used to be a governing agency that kind of governed that. I kind of lost touch with them to see if they still do that. There are a couple guys in my area I refer to. There are some places, some guys down in Mexico that are good too. In Arizona, I'm right next to the border, so there are people that, they'll go down there to get it done. So I just try to, so if you're having specific questions, I can post a couple of names of people that we like, or just maybe facilities that I like. But when you go ask the dentist, I would ask, number one, and you should ask at the front desk and the doctor. So, tell me what your philosophy is on amalgams, right? I would not go in there and say, I don't like amalgams. What do you think about it? Right? So, hey, tell me what's your take on these mercury amalgams?
Right.
Right? Because I want to hear their opinion, unbiased, right? And let him say what he says, right? Because you'll learn pretty quick, or her, excuse me, whoever it is. And then if they're want to say, hey, we don't put them in, I ask, so, why is that? I know some people still do. Like, ask that question, right? So you can kind of hit their philosophy on things and say, well, if you're going to remove them, what's your criteria for one doing it, and what's the process to have them removed? So as you're asking the question, so you understand what their process is, and you'll learn really quickly, like how thorough they are. And then you may even have a write-up about it, like here's what we do, and so we protect myself and you, so that, because really in their license, we're all governed by different agencies and boards. Okay? And so if I don't do what's standard of care, that can get me in trouble for my license. So their standard of care may still be allowing the mercury amalgams, right? And they're not supposed to bad talk them, right? But they'll be honest with you. Most of them, they'll be honest. So here's what we do about them. We don't put them in. Here's why. Here's the process of eliminating them. Right? So if you ask those questions, it can tell you an awful lot about it. Right? I personally don't want to go to somebody that's like, yeah, they're horrible, they're awful, like everybody else that does them is stupid, right? Because to me, that's not an energy that I want, right? I think we can have a conversation like, they're not healthy, we don't want them in our bodies. Here's a process of which we do. We talk to people about them, why we don't want them. Here's how we remove them. And then when you go to remove them, all the things we talked about in the previous one, where it's that much more important for doing all the nutrition, in my opinion, a minimum of 2 to 4 weeks before you get them removed. Right? Because I want that in your system and rolling before you go do it. And there's a situation where, guys, I would do an IV. Like, I would go get a Myers cocktail vitamin C drip and probably glutathione push. Right? If I was going to have those removed. Just when those pull out, that I'll try to get rid of it as much as I possibly can. That's a situation where I would recommend do IVs.
Because the way mercury behaves, like, gosh, isn't it crazy that when we were kids that, you would break the mercury thermometer and watch it roll around, So let's talk about how mercury behaves in your body, right? On just a chemistry level. Let's talk about how it travels and what it actually is. So when they go to pull that out, it goes airborne, right? Or
well,
what
mercury,
happens?
it's a heavy metal, so it literally likes nerves. It really does. It loves nerves. And so that's where you'll see a lot of the videos and you see posts out there where people have had mercury removed or whatever, and they just have like brain-based symptoms. Any metal will travel. Like when you remove a heavy metal, it's gonna go to find a home, right? As soon as it possibly can. And some metals are just more reactive in nature, and mercury is just one of those. It's very reactive and very corrosive by nature, especially to nerve tissue. I don't, and same with radioactive ones. Radioactive ones the same way. They're super, super reactive. I mean, they bind really hard. And so anything and again, with dental work, when you're drilling, right, that stuff's gonna splatter, right? So it can airborne and you can breathe it in, right? But, that's again why you're asking the dentist, like, what are the ways that we can minimize the exposure, and then himself too. A lot of them will use like a vacuum type thing setup with the hood of some kind, so that they're just minimizing the amount of spillover that could happen.
So once you start doing like a heavy metal detox, you start removing metals, they're traveling around in your body. We want to bind them up and get rid of them before they rehome themselves in a new location.
Right. That's why, in my opinion, you're already 2 weeks before your minimum, you're doing some of the other things to just prep the body to bind it. And again, at the dentistry room, having the dam, having the, the other things there. And the technology and techniques have gotten so much better than they used to. A lot of these guys are really good about it. But if you ask them, or people, the dentist's really good at it, just ask them, like, what's your process? And if they're like, oh, we just pull them out, I'm probably not going to have them do it. Right.
There are some that are like, listen, it's not a big deal. We got this. And that's what you really want to hear. Anybody wants to hear, oh, it's no big deal. They got this. But that is not in your best interest. Ask me how I know. Like, it was not helpful to me, the way that I'm really glad that they're gone. But the way that I went about doing it can serve as an example to others of what not to do. It took me like a year because of what it did to my body, and it triggered an autoimmune thing. And it would have been so much better and easier for me to have done it slower and had somebody that actually was able to instruct me on how to go about doing it properly.
Very much so. Yep. Yeah, be careful.
So let's talk about the Mad Hatter. There's a place where you can almost spot mercury toxicity with people, because there are some very telltale signs of mercury, high levels of mercury. And let's talk about what those are, as far as what you can almost see it in people.
So it seems like you have a lot of passion for this. So
I do.
So I want to hear why. Like, so what is that? And again, I agree with you, but so I haven't had the experience, but what was your experience personally when that happened?
My experience personally with mercury actually did not involve me. Mm-hmm. And one of the things about brain function that I think is so interesting, like if you get a head injury or you get a concussion, you don't know that your brain's off. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, that's the thing about the brain that's so intriguing. And, I'm at Quantum University getting my PhD in like brain health and brain studies is what I'm really interested in. Mm-hmm. So when you have heavy metal toxicity in your brain, you don't see it. It takes someone else to point it out and go, wow, something's off about you, because the person who's experiencing it has a different take on reality. And so there was a kid that I was working with, their parent, and their personality had changed drastically. And it was like, okay, she's laughing when she should be crying. Like, her sense of humor is god awful, right? Like, she actually sees these things and she thinks they're funny, and then she's upset about stuff that's not upsetting. It was like her personality was inverted. Mm-hmm. And they were, taking her to a psychologist. Like, they really worried that maybe there was something seriously wrong with this kid, like that maybe she was evil or something, because there was just this complete shift in who she represented herself as and how she saw the world. And we tested her heavy metals, and her mercury was really high from eating shellfish. Mm.
Yeah. And so I love that you brought this up. I think the point that I got from that, which is super helpful, and I think this is great for us as a group to get, is that a lot of times when people's brains aren't working ideally, they won't see it, right? Because your normal is your normal, and it may not be normal, right? And so then it's helping be aware of than others around us that learning to have those conversations and noticing it in other people, right? Because that is their normal experience. They think it's normal, and then asking and digging into it. And I love that you guys did the testing, right? Because if somebody's not feeling good, a lot of people think, well, that's just how I am. Versus, hey, I wonder if I could feel different, right? And I wonder if some of this is not necessarily it's not my fault. Maybe there's things that I don't know about that are influencing my body's ability to perform as it should. And that's where, for my dad and I, that 6 steps to wellness is because we realize that some people will not function well when they physically are struggling. So when their head locked up or had concussions or their neck locked up, maybe some people, they're deficient. Like they don't have the nutrients that they need from an inadequate diet. Maybe there are people that are emotionally locked up. Maybe there's the way their thought processes are, that the belief systems they have are not leading them towards health. Maybe there are people that are having allergies and sensitivities to things that they're eating, or maybe their gut's so dysfunctional that they're at it, or maybe there's heavy metals or toxicities there. Or maybe this electromagnetic stuff all around is abnormally affecting how the brain communicates. That's where the 6 steps of wellness was born, right? To try to give a practitioner, even a person, to look at the multifactorial situation that's going on, to really ask those questions. The same thing is true with the amalgams. We know the amalgams are part of the puzzle, and for some people, it's a big piece, right? And so if you have a mouthful of amalgams, you're not feeling good, then absolutely you need to consider removing them, but removing them in the right way, right? So everybody can start with the things we've talked about doing and slowly finding ways to eliminate with the foods and things like that, and prepping your body so then you can then go to removing them if that's a big thing going on with you where you think that's a big part of it. And that's where testing may become very valuable. You come in, you do some tests, and you find your mercury crazy high. Odds are it's coming from your amalgam. Then you want to work with the right dentist and pull them out.
Awesome. This has been such a fun series to do with you. Thank you so much, Dr. Brimhall. We really appreciate it. For everybody else who's getting the value that we've been getting out of this as well, like, comment, subscribe, share, do the social media thing for us. We greatly appreciate helping get this word out to as many people as possible. Heavy metals is definitely a big issue in many people's health, and so we appreciate it. Any last words, Dr. Brimhall?
Yeah, the only last words. Thank you guys for allowing me the opportunity to educate, and I know this will help one. I hope it helps thousands of people. And to get just know, bottom line, your body is powerful beyond measure, and give it a reason to get well. Listen to it, and then ask the right questions, and find your team of people that support you through that process. And let's get healthier together as a world, physically, mentally, and emotionally. So look forward to it. You guys have fun. We'll have fun
and if you guys have any questions and you want to know more information, you can put them in the comments below, and we can have Dr. Brimhall come back on again and do more interviews and more series so that you can learn more from him. We really appreciate you being with us today.
A lot of fun. All right, you guys have a good one.
All right.